great morning to one and all connected here. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the Faculty Development Program on Technology Enhanced English Language, Learning and Teaching, organized by Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development in collaboration with the PG Department of English of SDMB Vaishnav College for Women. The topic for today's session is Technology-Based Alternative Classroom for English Studies, Blended and Flipped Teaching and Learning Methods by our Honorable Resource Person, Dr. J. John Shaker, Professor, Research Department of English, the American College, Madurai. Prayer is an expansion of our faith in the present part within and around us. Let's begin today's session with our prayer song.
सत्यकृतं सत्यपरं त्रिसत्यं सत्यस्य योनिं निहितं च सत्ये सत्यस्य सत्यं धृतसत्यनेत्रम् सत्यात्मकं त्वां शरणं प्रपन्नाः वाणी गुणानुकदने श्रवणं कथाया हस्तौ च कर्मसु मनस्तमपादयोनः स्मृत्यां शिरस्तव निवास जगत्प्रणामे दृष्टि सदा दर्शनेषु भवत्तनूना नमो भगवते तस्मै कृष्णाय अद्भुतकर्मणे रूपनाम विभेदेन जगत्क्रीडति यायतः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति
Now, I request Professor R. Archana, Head of the Department, to deliver the welcome address and begin the session.
A very good morning. I'm very happy to welcome you all to this 3-day faculty development program organized by the Postgraduate Department of English of Srimati Devkunbar Nanalal Bhatt, Vaishnav College for Women, with the support of Rajiv Gandhi National Institute for Youth Development, Sri Permadu. I would like to begin my address by quoting the renowned scientist and professor Albert Einstein. He once registered, "I never teach my pupils. I only attempt to provide the conditions in which they can learn." Einstein's words are much appropriate for our FDP on technology-enhanced English language teaching, web tools for learning English language and literature, as this FDP aims to fortify our participants with the demanding skill sets employed in the teaching of English language as well as literature in the present scenario. The pandemic has in fact revolutionized the teaching methods by necessitating the teaching fraternity to employ the best and effective teaching methods to minimize the boredom of virtual classrooms. This is also a thought-provoking phase as the fraternity is on the move to adapt to the demands of modern teaching learning modes. It is also imperative that large classes with mixed ability students with varied learning abilities as well as disabilities tax the teachers to stay ahead of the teaching methods that are in trend. With this intent, we have chosen to be inclusive, to have a broad spectrum for participation from the teachers, research scholars, trainees, as well as postgraduate students. I take this privilege to welcome as well as thank Professor Sibnath Dev, the Director of Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development, for providing us with the opportunity to host this FDP. I also welcome Professor Vasanthi Rajendran and Training Officer Sri David Paul. Without their guidance, planning and organizing this FDP within a short span of time would have been very, very difficult. I now welcome Madam Principal, Dr. S. Geeta, the members of the college management, and Dr. Mahadevi, and also thank them for their everlasting support and encouragement. I truly trust the sessions by our distinguished resource persons during this FDP will be a successful training period to all our participants. The panel of resource persons include Dr. John Shaker from American College, Dr. Sujata Priyadarshini from Anna University, Dr. Veena Selvam from Anna University, Dr. P. Beena from SDNB Vaishnav College, Dr. K. Kantimathi from SD Vaishnav College for Women, Dr. Hemachandran Kara from IIT Madras, Dr. Lata Rajendran, Principal, MGR Institute for Special Education and Research, and Dr. Victoria Naomi from Avinashalingam Institute of Home Science and Special Education. And I'm indebted to their kindness and appreciate their willingness to share their expertise with us. I feel very proud in welcoming them all. The first 2 days of the program will highlight the use of web tools in language teaching as well as learning, and the third day will shed light on the challenges faced by students with special abilities. I wish all the participants the very best and a happy learning in the due course of this FTP. Thank you all. And there is also a kind request to the participants. The first session of the day 1 and 2, that is from 9:30 to 11 o'clock session, both the sessions are on Google Meet. So I request all the participants to remain muted and also turn off the video throughout the session. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to call upon Professor Hairun Fatima Naushi to introduce the resource person.
Hello and welcome everyone. I'm thrilled to have you all here. Thrilled to have you all here. Our speaker is an acclaimed academician and an illustrious teacher dedicated to master and share great innovations in the field of education with every passing day. Dr. John Shaker has 34 years of experience, during which he held superior positions such as Head of Research Department, Dean of Academic Policies and Administration, Dean for Curriculum Development and Research, and NAC Coordinator at one of the most outstanding colleges of Tamil Nadu, the American College. He holds PhD in ELT from Madurai Kamraj University, PGDTE from CFIL Hyderabad, PGDCE from the University of Hyderabad, and PGDHE from IGNOU. Being an eminent researcher, he has guided 65 MPhil scholars, 12 PhD scholars awarded, and 8 PhD scholars being supervised. He is an adjudicator and a member of doctoral committee in 12 universities across the country. He has citation index history of 11 in ResearchGate, 18 in Google Scholar, and 173 in academia.edu. Listing out his accomplishments would take up the whole session. So to sum them up, he has 97 publications in national and international journals, 116 research papers presented in national and international conferences in India and abroad, 62 technical sessions chaired, 5 international conferences organized, and 93 plenaries and panel discussions delivered. He has been a member of editorial board or review committee of 10 international journals. He has received 13 awards for contribution to research. He has many in-house textbooks for English language teaching being followed in Madurai Kamraj University. He has delivered 47 invited talks on communication skills and literary theories and has attended international conferences in Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Dubai, and Cambodia. Indeed, he is the authority for the topic technology-based alternative classroom for English studies And we are extremely privileged and proud to welcome Dr. J. John Shaker. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot. Shall I start?
Yes, sir. We can
Yeah.
start, sir. You can start, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Dr. Fatima, and kind words from Ms. Aishwarya also. Respected Principal of SDNB Vaishnava College for Women, Dr. Geeta, Head of the Department of English, Dr. R. Archana, coordinators, Ms. Karthika and Ms. Fatima, faculty friends of the department, learned fellow resource persons, participants of the 3-day FDP on technology enhanced English language learning and teaching. Student friends, good morning to all of you. I would like to congratulate each one of you on having registered for these 3 days FDP program. In spite of your regular schedule, you could find some time for updating yourself with what's happening in the field of research, intellectuals, as far as the teaching and learning of English language and literature is concerned. At the outset, I would like to thank Ms. Karthika for extending the invite to be part of the FDP, and in fact, I take it as the privilege to address the gathering, the very first session. I congratulate all the participants for being part of this FDP on technology and teaching English studies. So put it together for my convenience sake. I combine both English language and literature teaching and learning. One particular English studies.
I'm coming out.
So this combination, technology and teaching and learning,
Just leave the call.
is going to be the future. I say this because teachers are divided. Teachers who are teaching English literature and the English language, they are divided as far as the issue of using technology in our classes. But if you read examine NEP 2020 very closely, it's going to be the future. Combining technology with the teaching, combining technology with the learning is going to be the future in all disciplines. So English studies cannot be an exception. And as head of the department, contextualized, COVID-19 has taught us quite a lot of things. We were scared of COVID-19, but COVID-19 has come as a blessing in disguise. We learned quite a lot of things from this pandemic. So on the one hand, no, we cursed COVID-19. On the other hand, we learned quite a lot of things. This is this kind of ambivalent attitude that we have towards COVID-19, as much as our attitude toward the process of colonization. We opposed, and colonization also became a blessing to us because we were introduced to certain world assets like English literature and language. And why do I say that teachers are divided? Because you can divide the teachers diametrically into two categories. Teachers who continue to believe that language and literature can be taught without technology. And fairly seniors, they are of this view. And the other half, or maybe majority, if that it constituted by the younger teachers who are likely to be tech savvy, they would like to make use of technology. This is reason number one. Reason number two, students are tech savvy. Students are positively disposed towards exploring technology, not simply using technology. No student, no youth attends any coaching class to update themselves on the use of technology. They learn, they have curiosity, they have a mind, they have flair for learning technology by using it. So they are learning technology by using. At least for the sake of our learners, who are by and large, or of 21st century, many of us, like me, we were towards the end of our teaching career, and some of you would have just started your career, but all your students know they belong to 21st century. They were born with the present day students who are sitting in your classes. They were born with a mobile phone. They were born with the mobile technology. They were born with technology in general. And we teachers, irrespective of the generations, we have been also using technology in our personal life. So we have come to a stage where I think that we cannot live even a day without using a technology. So technology has become omnipresent in all walks of our life. So why not in education? So that is the. But the way we look at technology as a means for delivering educational goods has to be contextualized, localized. You cannot simply import the concept of technology in education from the West. Because we are a growing economy, we have our own problems. As a teachers and students, you would have understood perfectly how difficult it was to have quality access to technology during the pandemic. Students suffered. Students did not have access to quality internet, as much as some teachers also. Depends upon where you live. So no, there is no longer a discussion on whether technology is needed or not for education. That is settled once and for all. And at the outset, I'd like to tell you, friends, technology cannot replace teachers. Very often, teachers know we are nurturing a kind of anti-technological attitude on the premise that teachers might be rendered useless, redundant. Technology will have the say. It is not. I think that this is unfounded fear. Technology can never replace the teachers, but at the same time, technology will eventually replace the teachers without a technology. Teachers without a technology have no future. And therefore, irrespective of our technical orientation, our attitude towards technology, we as teachers of English studies, we as teachers of English literature and the English language are no longer an exception. So we have to embrace technology at one point of time or the other. The extent to which we are going to make use of technology, the kind of definition that we create ourselves as far as technology is concerned, the kind of technological gadgets or the kind of educational apps that we are going to, or the software that we are going to use in our institutions may differ from person to person, place to place, campus to campus, because it depends on various factors over which we may not have any control. So friends, therefore we should prepare ourselves for a change. The change appears to be writing on the wall. It's very clear. I tell you again, technology cannot replace teachers, but technology will eventually replace teachers who are without a technology. So that writing on the wall is very clear. Friends, for at least 2 decades, terms like blended learning, flipped classroom, technology in education, these terms, these concepts have been researched, these concepts have been discussed, these concepts have been debated, and these concepts have been documented as far as English language teaching in India is concerned. It's no longer new. And as I told you, pandemic has taught us a new vocabulary called blended learning. So when I use the word blended learning, Ms. Karthia asked me to, I gave her the topic like alternative classroom to traditional classroom for English studies. And she was very particular about foregrounding the terms of blended learning and flipped classroom. And about 10 years ago, I had written articles on blended learning and flipped classroom as far as English language teaching and learning is concerned. and therefore it has become now part of higher education. This blended learning or flipped classroom, they have become part of higher education even before the starting of the pandemic. However, its importance remained as an academic exercise. Teachers are talking about it, scholars are thinking about these terms, these concepts. They are writing articles, they are presenting papers. They are all there. But then, as I said, it is an academic exercise. Until we were forced to use technology in the wake of COVID-19 since March 2020 in our country as much as in other countries. And therefore, before I start sharing my views and experiences with you on blended learning and flipped classroom, my personal observations are I would like to share my personal observations. Number one, flipped classroom, blended learning, as I told you, were introduced, at least at the research level, only in ELT, English language teaching, and not English literature teaching in India. But when I said that these things were not properly implemented, we were writing about blended learning and flipped classroom, or use of even technology. But these ELT practitioners, these ELT researchers, in my understanding, could pay only lip service to technology enhanced classroom and learning environment. They could not go beyond writing articles and having discussions with their friends. They could not do anything more. They could not bring technology into a classroom on a daily basis, for which they are not responsible. So my first observation is that ELT teachers, ELT researchers, they simply paid lip service. That's number one. Number two, technology-driven classroom or technology-driven learning was never explored in literature teaching and literature learning. When I say technology-driven classroom, I have in my mind both blended learning and flipped classroom. I have come across number of articles on experiments with the use of blended learning in higher education in general and flipped classroom in science classes and law courses. But for reasons unknown to us, we never explored both the blended learning and flipped classroom, even for research in literature. At least in language, we had done some research on the use of flipped classroom and blended learning in ELT, but not in English literature teaching. That is number two. My third observation is that there was a lot of resistance from a vast majority of English language teachers themselves, leave alone literature teachers. English language teachers themselves they put up a lot of resistance to the use of technology. That I understand, because basically English language teachers in our country are English literature teachers, English literature students. Okay, maybe some of you may be placed in technological institutions where you might be required to teach English as a language. But all of us, except a very tiny minority, all of us know we have had our orientation in literature. So that might be the reason why we resisted to the use of technology in our classes, or at least for research purposes. Number four, some tech-savvy teachers were positively disposed toward the use of technology for English language teaching. But the rigid system in which we find ourselves never allowed them to incorporate technology into the curriculum. Even if there were some well-meaning teachers who were interested in introducing technology in their classroom, they could do so only as a private attempt, as a private effort, as something that was not part of a curriculum. Even in most of the autonomous colleges, where we could have introduced the technology for the teaching and learning of English language literature, but we never did it. We could not introduce it into the curriculum. And my last observation is that very little research has been carried out on the use of technology on testing and assessment. All of us were caught up in a very piquant situation during the pandemic. Students have favored online testing, online examination, but we were skeptical. You know that what is a teacher's attitude towards, what is teacher's feedback towards student performance during online exams. But then we may give lots of reasons against online testing and assessment. We may blame it on various factors, but at the bottom line, as researchers of English language literature, we fail to focus on the use of technology on testing and assessment. Now, I would like to raise the question and then discuss with you, what is the institutional attitude toward technology to learning during the pandemic? What are the institutions where you are placed? What is our institutional attitude toward using technology to teaching and learning during this pandemic for the past 2 years? For the first time in the history of education, particularly higher education in India, institutions reacted to the use of technology or online mode, or sometimes what you call hybrid mode during the pandemic. No institution institutionalized, no institution, in fact, I am yet to come across, even from colleges from Chennai, even technological universities, private and state-owned universities. I don't know how many institutions have installed LMS on their website. Because without LMS, learning management system, no, we cannot talk about institutionalization of technology in our institutions. So for the first time in their history, institutions reacted to the use of technology. Governments, the union government and state governments, the University Grants Commission, and the educational institutions, both affiliated to universities and autonomous institutions, found the interest in and importance of technology for formal learning all of a sudden. No, though NAC required the colleges to introduce Google Classroom and all for quite some time, not very many colleges had that system, because we believed in face-to-face classes rather than Google Classroom. But Google Classroom became a buzzword. G Suite became a buzzword during the pandemic. That's because institutions recognized for the first time in our history the use of technology, even though institutions could not incorporate the use of technology into our curriculum. Even last 2 years, autonomous colleges, universities would have their boards of studies would have met several times, but still we could not incorporate technology into our courses. Zoom and other virtual platforms became common words among students. All students now pronounce the word the Google Classroom or Zoom or so many other virtual platforms. Very common among the students, among educators, among the conference organizers. Okay, so the term webinar, for example, became a common word within higher education. Everybody is using the word webinar, but unfortunately, paradoxically, neither the NAC nor the UGC has recognized webinar participation, webinar presentations as something a legitimate intellectual activity so far. The NAC has openly pronounced that papers presented at the webinars won't be considered on par with, or participation in webinars won't be considered on par with in-person conferences. And therefore, now the educational institutions have given up the term webinar. Seminar is privileged over a webinar. And now we start using the term online conferences. Conferences conducted online. Okay. And online classes turned out to be a substitute for learning. And students were addicted to online testing. We feel comfortable with, some of us may feel comfortable with online classes. All students feel comfortable with online classes. But now they would like to come back to campuses, but they insist on online assessment for the reasons known to them, we also know. So individual researchers, individual institutions which were making money out of online platforms started making an apology for technology-driven learning now. So there has been a paradigm shift in the attitude of the institutions towards the using of technology for teaching and learning. It's a positive sign. Now, the very same institutional attitude has undergone some change during the post-pandemic. We are no longer in the pandemic period. Now we are in the post-pandemic period. What is the attitude of the institutions, or what is the institutional attitude toward using technology to learning and teaching? As I said, very interestingly, but paradoxically, institutional attitude toward the use of technology in education has changed again now. That's what I perceive. Almost all institutions have stopped using Google Classrooms. Google Classrooms must be used along with face-to-face traditional classrooms. If you use both on a daily basis, then we can say that we follow blended language literature learning. We are using blended mode. But I understand most of the institutions now again focus on face-to-face classes, and Google Classroom is becoming they are conveniently now we have begun to forget it. So all these institutions which showed a very positive attitude toward using a technology have now started debunking technology. I don't know why. And governments have announced, all state governments have announced offline classes, offline exams. While students prefer offline classes, they want to come to college, but they prefer online exams for reasons known to them. And very curiously, testing agencies refuse to allow the candidates to take either NET exam or a NEET exam online from home. So they have their own reservations about the use of technology for national eligibility test or entrance tests. And now classes are being conducted as if online classes were of no use at all. I raised this issue with my faculty members. If somebody goes on leave, somebody goes on other duty, usually no, we cancel classes, or the classes are met by substitute teachers without any meaning. But now, if we continue to use Google Classroom, at convenient time, we can fix an appointment with our students, and we can continue to meet our students through Google Classroom, even when we are not going to classroom. And now students find it extremely difficult to come to classes on Saturday, because it requires some time for them to switch over from online classes to offline classes, that to 6 days a week. Perhaps you can think of meeting students online through Google Classroom on Saturdays. There is nothing sanctum sanctorum about meeting students only in person in campuses. If we entertain like that, if we continue to privilege over offline classes over online classes, then as I said at the beginning, we may be paying only a lip service to the use of technology. Okay, technology is part of our life. As I told you, we cannot live even a day without technology. So why should we reserve technology for a few hours in a semester, or occasional or a few occasions in a semester or a year? So do they indicate something wrong with the technology when we say that we should come back to offline classes, we must take on offline exams, we cannot conduct a NET exam online from home, we cannot allow students to take a NEET exam from home online? What do they indicate? Do they indicate something wrong with using technology? Are we questioning the integrity of Indian teachers and students? Friends, we cannot make innovation in education until our attitudes change for the better. So if we continue to be doubting Thomases, Now, I don't think that now we can speak of any innovations. Now, the two innovation classes, or what I call alternative classes, that I propose in my talk today are: number one, blended classroom or blended learning, blended language learning, blended literature learning, or blended method being followed in English studies. Number one, and number two is flipped classroom. Okay. So, what is blended learning? What is the meaning of the word blended in blended learning? Blender. It is also called a hybrid learning. Hybrid. It is also called mixed learning. Sometimes it is called e-learning. Sometimes it is called B-learning. B short form of blended learning. So, blended learning is known variously. Whatever the term and terminology that we feel comfortable to use, it is an approach to education. Now we are talking about literary education or language education. It is an approach. This approach combines both online educational experiences, materials, opportunities for interaction online with traditional place-based classroom methods. So blended learning is a combination of blended learning is a marriage between online and offline. Online teaching, online learning, online materials, online opportunities, online interaction on the one hand, and traditional classroom materials, traditional classroom methods, classroom opportunities, classroom based interaction on the other hand. Combining, putting these two modes together, we call it blended learning. Very interestingly, blended learning first started in corporate training, not within academia. It was introduced in corporate training. It was introduced in corporate training. It was an invention for the corporates in the West, because without it disturbing their regular daily work schedule, they had to update themselves. And this corporate trainees, they may be placed in various places of their company across the globe, but they can have a training program at a particular appointed time online. And it was also seen as cost effective. That we understood during the pandemic. Learning things, teaching things, attending seminars, conferences, or what you call webinar online was relatively cheap. You have to spend in big cities, metros like in Chennai, students who are coming from different parts of the city, they have to waste 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon, depending upon their traffic, before they reach the college. They become physically tired by the time first hour starts. Whereas they could overcome this problem in online classroom, because they could attend the classes from where they are. They can get ready to come to the virtual classroom just 5 minutes before. But you have to leave your home around 7 o'clock in order to attend the first hour at 9 o'clock in your educational institutions. It is cost effective also. So employees working in the company, which had different branches in different parts of the globe, they could come together virtually for a training program. It was very cheap also. So blended learning was first introduced in corporate training. Then it was extended to higher education in the West, higher education in general. Then finally, third, it was focused in ELT. This is the beginning of blended learning as a mode of learning in the West. The percentage of online-offline combination, I use the word metaphor marriage, equal is the percentage of online-offline. No, it remains elusive. There have been a number of research attempts to find out how much of online component should be combined with how much of offline components. How much of time can be spent on online, how much of time can be spent in physical traditional classrooms. That depends on the context. It is ranging from a minimal amount of online to 80%. A minimum maybe 10%, 20%, 10% of your total number of classes. If it is 90 hours, 10%, 9 hours. If it is 20%, maybe 18 hours out of 19 hours, 90 hours in a semester. So this is the, it is to say that a blended learning, how much must be blended? How much of online component, how much of offline component must be put in together? Okay, so so that is an issue in blended learning. It is mainly, as I told you, cost effective, but one of the greatest advantages of blended learning is self-paced learning. Each learner takes their own sweet time to learn things. Okay, so I'll say more about it. The self-paced learning when I introduce what is called flipped classroom. Okay, so blended learning, when it is introduced in institutions, it can be introduced only through an LMS, language management, learning management system. So online materials prepared by the teachers, online tests, online quizzes, online experiences, everything is uploaded in the LMS. There are many. There are LMS is an online integrated software created for creating new materials, delivering the materials, tracking our learning paths, reporting the educational courses and outcomes. Okay, so this is possible when each institution installs an LMS on their official website, to which students have a password and use it. You need not have a common day for assessment, a quiz. Students can take the quiz, student can take the test anytime before a deadline that we fix. They will be ready to take a quiz as and when they have learned online. So that is called an LMS, and through LMS, know you are. So students are not learning only through online education, online teaching, online learning has its own limitations, no doubt about it. But this LMS can support traditional face-to-face instruction and blended learning, or what is called hybrid learning, or what is called distant learning environments. The number of LMS. So friends, blended learning is a combination of online teaching and learning, offline teaching and learning. Blended learning is a combination of online teaching learning materials and offline teaching learning materials. Blended learning is a combination of both online testing and assessment and offline testing and assessment. Blended learning is a combination of online interaction and offline interaction. It's a combination of both traditional classroom and online classroom. So before I move further, we have to understand what is a traditional classroom, how does a traditional classroom look like, what are the basic features of a traditional classroom, that we must be very clear. Then we must be clear about online classroom, how does online classroom look like, and what are the basic features of an online classroom. Now you combine. When you combine, you have to decide how much of a traditional classroom, how much of online classroom can be combined together to create an alternative classroom called blended classroom. What is a traditional classroom? We are all familiar with the traditional classroom. All of us, except one or two batches of students who have gone outside the educational institution during the pandemic, all of us know we are all the products of traditional classrooms. So what is a traditional classroom? Traditional classroom can be described either physically or psychologically or philosophically. What is a traditional classroom? When you say that blended classroom is a combination of both online and offline, both traditional classroom and an online classroom. How do we characterize a traditional classroom? Traditional classroom is an educational place, a physical place where a teacher delivers a knowledge to the student in person. Here is a one-way traffic. Teacher is projected as the sage on the stage. Knowledge flows from the mind of the teachers, and students are kept at the receiving end. Teachers are active, students are passive receivers of knowledge. What do you call banking theory? Almost like teachers are depositing knowledge in students' mind. It's a kind of recurring deposit. So the place of learning is a classroom, and this classroom is fixed. It never changes. This classroom is equipped with tables, chairs, blackboards, fans, and other classroom essentials, without which we cannot call it a classroom. Philosophically, classroom is a place for a transmission of the skills, for the transmission of values, for the transmission of knowledge, of social and moral conduct to the next generation of students. So not simply learning about a subject, students are learning skills, students are learning values, students are learning knowledge, students are learning social and moral conduct, because they are going to be an asset for our country. Traditional classroom is understood as interactive in the sense that transfer of knowledge and information takes place from teacher to students. Students can also raise queries to the teachers. In that sense, traditional classroom is also an interactive classroom. And traditional classroom is a place where we are transacting a pre-planned curriculum, which is set for the classroom. Already decided what should be transacted during this particular hour on a particular day in a semester. Everything is a pre-planned. And teacher follows the same pattern. Substitute teacher is also expected to follow the same pattern. And in a traditional classroom, teacher is considered the controller of learning environment. Teacher is having overall control over the learning environment. The learning environment must be controlled by the students. But in traditional classroom, teacher becomes the controller. It is the teachers who hold the power. It is the teachers who hold responsibility. It is the teachers who feel bad when students' performance is not up to the mark. It is the teachers who are discussing with the fellow teachers the performance of a particular student or a particular class. It is the teachers who judge a particular class to be a good class, bad class, unruly class, excellent class. So we become judges. It is the teachers who make decisions about instruction, and they take decision about learning as well. And therefore, traditional methods in traditional classroom focus on the teacher as the only source of information in the classroom. Students cannot have access to any other source if they want to acquire information and knowledge other than the teachers. Teachers are the only source of information. Hence, traditional classroom embraces the idea of a teacher-centered method, a teacher-centered or teacher-fronted method. And usually the interaction is mainly from the teacher to the students rather than students to the teacher. And friends, traditional classrooms are the place where regular tests are conducted to test students' understanding of the curriculum. Look at our question papers, either language question paper or literature question papers. Most of the questions test students' knowledge of the curriculum, the text, understanding. We don't test any other skill. And various classroom activities are there in traditional classrooms, like debates, group discussions, group projects. Now we conduct in traditional classroom. And teacher, above all, teacher can pay individual attention and understand the difficulties faced by each and every student. That is one of the strong points about traditional classroom. Teachers can pay individual attention to every student in the classroom. Sometimes we spend time as a mentor to use the NAC language, even outside classes, even outside class hours, which is usually absent in distance and virtual learning. Traditional classroom has a schedule and students are expected to follow the same to learn a subject or a lesson. And of course, traditional classroom can be characterized as a place where punishments are very common. Okay, so these are the things that we understand classroom, traditional classroom to be. Now the question is, why alternative classroom? Why online classroom? Aren't there any benefits of traditional classroom? Yes, there are several benefits of traditional classroom. We need not go for alternative classroom at all. So that is what we feel. If you look at it, the strength of traditional classroom. One-on-one or in-person teaching is very effective. Demonstrates increased levels of student engagement with the teacher in the physical classroom, face-to-face classroom, traditional classroom. It increases informal interaction among students, which is 100% absent in the Google Classroom. So informal interaction among students every hour, in between hours, throughout the day, as long as they are there, either inside the classroom or on campus. It provides a conducive environment for fellow students to learn. Because in a formal occasion, students, they must coexist. They learn from each other as much as they learn from teachers, from the textbooks. It increases higher level competitiveness among students. Students learn from each other. The spirit of cooperation, the spirit of competitiveness is also present in traditional classrooms. The social environment is perfect to build a student's character and personality. It is not available in online classroom at all. It instills discipline, provides a sense of direction to students. Friends, I can go on listing various benefits of traditional classrooms. Now, why should we switch over to online classroom? Of course, during the pandemic, there was no other way to go, so we switched to virtual classroom. But virtual classrooms, cannot be a substitute for traditional classroom, because online classrooms, virtual classroom, has its own challenges. As I said, we all experimented with online virtual classrooms over the past 2 years. Both students and teachers were not satisfactory with the experiment in Indian context. But even medical sciences, engineering and technology courses were not spared during the last 2 years. Does it mean that when we were not satisfied, we were not happy, student teachers wanted to come back to physical traditional classrooms? Now, education institutions have forgotten about Google Classroom. Does it mean that it has its own inherent weakness? Does online classroom has its own limitations? We must identify them if there are any before mixing online and offline classrooms, before blending both of them to create what is called a blended learning classroom. Okay. Now, what are the challenges? What are the limitations? What are the weaknesses of this new system of learning? We call it online learning. Okay. I can share these things with you from my experience. I think that you can also compare them with your 2 years of teaching online experience. Number one, online classroom lacks constant supervision of the teacher. We are not able to supervise the teacher and pay individual attention to each student online. Most of the times what happens is that teacher is talking to herself. We don't see any students. Students punctually, perfectly, obediently switch off their cameras. Okay, and we ask them to mute their audio. Whether they are listening to us, what they are doing, I'm not talking about tertiary level education alone. Even kindergarten level, what are children doing in online classes? No, even parents at home, they have their child, but they are not able to supervise. But you think of a teacher supervising 60 students online. It is so online classrooms inherent weakness. And number two, there is no individual attention from the teacher. Students feel that teacher is talking to the screen, small screen, because most of the students were using a mobile phone, and therefore they lost the personal touch with the teacher. The teacher also feels that the teacher has lost the personal touch, the warmth of the students. Three, students do not have the same level of discipline and direction that is required to learn, that is present in face-to-face classes. But you can't ensure that type of discipline and direction in online classes. This is another limitation. And online classes now prohibited social interaction. No? So students all the time, even while they were attending online classes, students were in touch with each other through their WhatsApp group. I do know, I got it verified from many students of mine that while they were now, this day, present day students are also multitasking. They'll be listening to you, they'll also be chatting and texting with their students who are also attending the same classes or some other classes, no, they'll be attending. So it prohibits social interaction, and students are forced to create their own avenues for social interaction during these online classes. And online classes do not provide co-curricular, extracurricular activities, even though we invented our own ways of conducting cultural or quiz competitions online during last 2 years. Because these extra and co-curricular activities are equally important for students, at least as much as curricular activities. Friends, technology could not replace teachers and textbooks. Just because we switched over to online mode, we teacherless online teaching is not possible. Without a textbook, online is not feasible, because we could not provide online materials all of a sudden. We were not prepared. Our curriculum was meant for offline classes. So we transacted offline curriculum online. Printed textbooks, no, but then we were using technology to talk as I am doing now. Okay, and therefore it becomes tedious for most students as they tend to procrastinate due to lack of self-discipline. There is no one else there to monitor themselves. And the teacher also faced the same challenge of engaging students online. It does not build any close relationship of students with their teachers. Okay, so students are unable to share their learning experiences among themselves. So these are some of the challenges of online classes. Now let me come to, so you have understood the traditional classroom, online classroom, their challenges, their benefits. And therefore, now it's a high time that we went in for blended learning, not staying with traditional classrooms alone, not staying with online classroom alone. It's a high time that we combine the best of the traditional classroom and the best of the online classroom to create a new kind of alternative classroom, which we call blended learning, which may have the strengths of these two systems. Okay, so this blended learning can be extended to not necessarily language classes, but also literature classes. This ICT changes the way in which English can be taught. When I say English, it stands for generic sense. It stands for both language and literature. Many senior teachers of English feel more comfortable with the textbooks, and they believe the use of computers threatens their traditional literacy skills. How can technology be a mediator? How can technology be a mode for learning language or literature? Because both language and literature are inevitably linked with human beings. So they think that the personal human touch is lost since language literature learners are ultimately going to interact with the humans, not with the machines. On the other hand, there are several benefits, there are several opportunities for engaging students to practice outside the classroom, both language classroom and literature classroom. It can be combined with online learning, can be combined with on-site learning, because number one, it promotes a constructive thinking. Online class is not the same as offline class and vice versa. As we have understood, both the classrooms have their own characteristics and both are mutually inclusive. Okay, this blended classroom promotes constructive thinking. It enhances creative thinking. No, it's not. So when creative thinking enhances, naturally reproductive activity decreases. See, one example. See, you look at the memes. How creative students are these days when they create memes. Without technology, they could not bring out their original thinking. So why can't we ensure original thinking, original attempt, original writing using technology for our end? It enables learners to optimize the time for language and literature learning. It imbibes in literature students the skills of information culture, information processing. Okay, at the same time, it is increasing teaching quality. When you prepare an online lecture, you cannot go to an online classroom the way we go to the offline classroom. In offline classroom, you can spend a lot of time for things that are not directly related to the point that you wanted to convey. One of the experiences that every teacher shared, in online classroom, teachers were able to cover the syllabus earlier than the schedule, because teachers spent the whole period, 50 minutes, 54 minutes, on the delivery of the subject. No digression. Whereas depending upon the reaction of the student that you can see on their faces, now you spend a lot of time on digression. Now, whatever you speak for 50 minutes in traditional classroom can be conveyed to the same set of students when they attend your online classes in 15 minutes. We avoid all digressions. Okay, so it widens the scope for self-study. It encourages and develops learner autonomy. Even if your students attend 15 minutes online teaching, you can stop it. You can allow students to spend the rest of the day, the rest of the hour on self-study. In American college, we introduced self-study concept on Saturdays. Saturdays, working day for the teachers, but it's not a working day, no class for the students. We called it self-study. They will do it themselves. And when they come for the Monday classes, no, they will seek clarification from the teachers on their own understanding. So learner autonomy, learner dependency on themselves, encouraged through this combination of online and offline classrooms. Okay. Now coming to the second one, flipped classroom. So blended learning, you make use of both online classes and offline classes. You make use of both offline materials and online materials. You make use of offline interactions and online interactions. But only thing I told you that we must have everything prepared for online. You have to prepare and then you must see that fed in your LMS. And at the curriculum designing level, you must decide how much of weight is given to offline learning and online learning. So the blending, we must be very, very careful as teachers, as course designers, as course deliverers, as the examiners. Now switching over to the flipped classroom inverts classroom activities. Flipping means inverting. So flipped classroom inverts classroom activities with activities that normally take place outside the classroom or at home. So flipping here, flipped classroom flips from instruction in class and practice at home. That is the usual pattern. Students are instructed in class and students are expected to do some practice, some homework, writing assignment, preparation for tests and quizzes at home. Now switching is from instruction in class and practice at home to instruction at home. That is flipping. Students learn at home and practice in class. This is a paradigm shift. Students are not shocked. Students are not given any information without their being prepared for that. Friends, flipped classroom, the very term was coined by two American high school science teachers. I believe they were science teachers, they were chemistry teachers. Bergman, Bergmann, Bergman and Sams. They created this term, they created this new kind of alternative classroom called flipped classroom exactly 10 years ago, 1220. In 1220, they created a new classroom. This is the brief history. These two chemistry teachers, during leisure time, they were discussing their concern, they're sharing their concern for some students who could not attend their theory classes and practicals because they represented their school in cultural activities, including sports. So they were given OD. So they could not attend their classes. They could not attend the lab work. So what happens once our students miss our classes, they miss our lectures once and for all. If majority of the students missed our lectures, maybe you can repeat your lecture. But even when you repeat, there will be a lot of difference between the lecture that you delivered first and the lecture that you delivered second time. It is a repeat lecture, but there is a lot of difference between the two. If any student who attended your original lecture and your repeat lecture will easily find out what are the things that you had included in your original lecture and what are the things that you excluded in your second lecture or included something new. So it is humanly impossible for any teacher to repeat a talk, to repeat a lecture. And this minority student, when they could not attend these classes, they had to forego the lab experience and the theory classes once and for all. So how can we help? It is not to punish students who represented the school. So what to do? This Bergman and Sams, they discussed, and then they thought, why can't we make use of Web 2.0 technology, interactive technology? So why can't we make use of technology to help the students who miss their classes? Sometimes genuinely, some students could not have attended our classes because of the health reasons. So how to help them? Then they came up this idea. Then they thought about their own classroom situations. They thought about their own classroom experiences, and they came to a consensus that their consensus is ably supported by research in psychology. Students are not able to focus on their listening to lectures more than 17 minutes. More than 15 to 17 minutes, students cannot focus their attention on listening to us. Even though we are fully committed to our lectures, so whatever you speak after the first 17 minutes, usually we teachers waste first 10 minutes on taking attendance. And by the time you start giving lectures, students would have switched off their hearing capacity. They are no longer interested in, they are no longer be able to listen and grasp what we are talking about for another 50 minutes. And therefore, this insight, students cannot listen more than 17 minutes, gave them an idea that they could audio record their lectures in 17 minutes, short lectures. Or lectures in 54 minutes class also, friends, if you look at it, if you remove all digressions, if you remove all minor points, if you focus on the major point that you want to teach, it will also come to 15 to 17 minutes. So the takeaway for students is whatever we speak for 15 minutes. That's the thing for the students. So the teachers know, they thought that they could record, audio record or video record. I'm telling about in 2012. But now you don't need any studio. You don't need any sophisticated camera. Your mobile phone will do. You can record, audio record or video record through WhatsApp. You are sending our message. So either you video record or audio record for 15 to 17 minutes lecture. You want to teach a grammar item, you introduce that grammar item, whatever point that you want your students to know about it. You want to teach a sonnet by Shakespeare, you want to introduce a character from Dickens novels, talk about it for some 15 minutes or 17 minutes, and then you record it, then you send it. You need not post it. You can post it in Google Classroom. You can send it to your classroom WhatsApp group. And student, this is what you are going to do tomorrow. You need not wait for students to come to your classes and sit and start listening to you. Not necessary at all. Whatever you want students to know, whatever you want your students to understand, you send it an audio record through WhatsApp or through mail or through Google Classroom, and students will listen to your 15 to 17 minutes lectures as many times as they require. That is the textbook. You have given the summary. You have motivated them. You give them, these are the sources. You give them, these are the references. If you want, you can go and read more. But this is whatever you are not able to say in 15 minutes about your sonnet, you won't be able to say it even if you are given 50 minutes time. So we need to have kind of disciplining our time and our lectures. So 15 to 17 minutes, you can audio record or video record, then you send it to your students, they will listen. What's happening is that this is what you are going to do in the classroom after students coming to your classes. Before students come, you send this material to students, they will sit at home and they will listen. A low achiever will listen to your lecture 2, 3, 4 times. A high achiever will listen to your lecture only once. But low achiever and high achiever, when they come to classroom, know equally what you wanted them to learn. Low achiever has, medium learner has listened to your lecture again and again, 2, 3 times and understood. High achiever, intelligent student, listen to your lecture only once, understood. But all the students, by the time they come to your classes on a particular appointed at a time in a day, they come fully informed about what you wanted them to do. They have known, they have understood. This is what we call lower order thinking skills, which we need not waste our classroom time to give such pieces of information or knowledge. Now all students are ready. They prepared themselves. They come to your classes. Now classroom, you will be spending 15 minutes. That is freed up. Now students come, sit in groups, in pairs. Now they discuss the topic. You give them a topic about the sonnet. You raise certain questions. Let them discuss in pairs, in the benches or groups. And then what happens is that the other skills are being targeted in the classroom. Lot of interaction between students within the group, within the pair. Lot of discussion between students and teachers about the sonnet, about the character, about the theme, about a particular theory. So you can introduce it in all classrooms. Flipped classroom can be introduced in all disciplines, in all subjects, in all courses. So students will start applying. You give them a sonnet. You ask them whether it is sonnet or a lyric, because they are familiar with what is a lyric and what is a sonnet. You give them a poem. You ask them to identify whether it is a poem by Wordsworth or not, because you already given them the features of a Wordsworthian poem. Now they are analyzing, they are reading, they are analyzing. Okay, this unknown poem they are reading, they are analyzing, they are applying what you already briefed them through your lecture. They are evaluating, they are creating. You can remove the last couple of lines from the sonnet. Then you ask them to substitute. If you were a poet, how do you end this sonnet? If you were a novelist, how do you end this novel? If you were the short story writer, how do you end this particular short story? If you were Shakespeare, who would have been the main character in the Tempest? You ask them. So friends, this learning takes place at home, and activity or practice begins in the class. So learning is not learning is not confined to only one learner. Learners learn from each other. They learn a lot of social skills. They learn a lot of intellectual skills. Knowing, understanding, they got perfected at home, but they learn the skills of analyzing, applying, evaluating, and synthesizing in the classroom. This is what we call, in sum and substance, flipped classroom. Flipped classroom is similar to blended learning in the sense that both use face-to-face and online learning. Okay, but at the same time, it differs from blended learning because of its inverted activities. In blended learning, you are making use of two media, but there is no inversion. Whereas in flipped classroom, inverted activities, online explanation through audio video recordings, complements or supplements in-class learning in flipped classroom through interactive or participatory activities. Flipped classroom does not replace face-to-face teaching with online instruction. No, both coexist, but both have inverted their roles. Flipped classroom students acquire content through short video lectures or audio lectures online, and subsequent class session focuses on analysis, application, problem solving in order to deepen their learning. It therefore, as I said, frees up the in-class time for more interactive activities, while online activities in blended learning replace some of the in-class time. So since it is blended e-learning with classroom learning, it can be classified as a branch of blended learning. Flipped classroom is not blended learning. You can say that it is a branch of blended learning. Many of you may be familiar with socio-cultural theories of language learning. All socio-cultural theories of language learning hold that learning happens only in communication with others. And language learning is not different from literature learning, because both language learning, literature learning involve number of human beings. And communication is common for both language and literature. Okay, so flipped classroom is beneficial because it promotes active learning. Students sitting in the classes are not passive listeners. They are not simply receiving in. They become active learning. No, it promotes active learning. They become active learners. It increases interaction between teachers and students. It increases interaction between students and students, one student and another student. It improves collaboration among students. One of the 6 21st century skills, collaboration, cooperation among students improves. It allows the flexible learning, just in time, and fosters a critical thinking. That is what literature claims. Literature learning, literature teaching must make students to think critically, not simply accept one point of view. You're all familiar with the reader response theories. Now we are living in the theory era. You cannot simply accept what writers have projected. Meanings do not lie in the text. Meanings are recreated in the process of interaction between the text and the reader. Meanings are not preconceived as new critics believed. So critical thinking is fostered by flipped classrooms. Flexible learning suits learning needs of digital native students. Our students know they're all digital natives. They live in digital era. They live in digital world. Some of the teachers know we are digital immigrants. Now and then we go, we check our email, we check our WhatsApp status. Then most of the time we are living in this physical world. But students love living forever in the digital world. And unfortunately, some of our teachers, some of us are digital outsiders. I know many teachers do not have email ID at all. Many teachers do not have Facebook account at all. Many of us are not part of LinkedIn at all. Many of us do not have WhatsApp group at all. So I call these teachers as digital outsiders. Friends, if we are going to be digital outsiders, students will not befriend us. students will treat us as aliens from some other planet. So the flipped classroom can access the learning resources anytime, anywhere. Anytime, anywhere. You don't have to wait for, if your library is digitized, it will free up a lot of space. All books, 1 lakh books, 2 lakhs books that we have in the library can be digitized. Student need not have one particular hour to go to library. That space can be used for some other purpose. All books are now digitized. You can have access. You pay an amount and you can download the book anytime, even at midnight. Not that you have to wait. When you have some doubt, immediately what do? You Google, you find out. It's early morning, 1 o'clock. You don't wait for the library to open. Even if you wait for the library to open, if you go to library, librarian is absent. If library is present, the book is not available. Somebody has borrowed it. So you have to wait for days together to have a look at the book. But that is not happening now. So learning becomes flexible. It enhances student teachers IT literacy. It improves learning outcomes. So there are lots and lots of advantages of flipped classroom. And at the same time, friends, I don't say that it doesn't have any limitations at all. Flipped classroom has its own limitations. Okay, that we cannot negate it. Since it encourages a learn at your own space style of education. You can, as you know, they can learn by listening to your lectures, watching your lectures too many times. If you have got a good infrastructure, you can upload all your lectures on YouTube. Not necessarily your students, no, general students from other colleges can also listen to your lectures. They did not have an opportunity to join the college where you are working. I heard that you are good at literary theories, but I am not able to sit in your classes. But if you upload your lectures in YouTube, students all over the world can have a look at it, and they learn it at their own pace. So it encourages learning at one's own space and pace. Its success relies heavily on the principle that students are self-motivated. Students must be prepared to listen to your lectures. Not only your lecture, there will be 5 lectures uploaded. So students must listen to 5 lectures in the evening, and they should learn themselves. They must prepare themselves before they come to classes. Students cannot simply come and sit in your classes without preparation. They need to be prepared. They need to be self-motivated. If they are not prepared, if they are not motivated, flipped classroom will not work. It becomes a problem for the teacher to assess where a student is in their education, and the teacher cannot make sure that every student is learning is at a steady pace, because each student takes their own time to learn. So cooperation of students and trust in students also necessary. So testing becomes difficult, since students would take tests at different times after they have learned something at their own pace. Okay, so as I told you, students find it. Many students from low socio-economic backgrounds. I can give you umpteen number of case studies from my own experiences last 2 years. How many students did not have access to the quality internet. On the TV also you could have seen, even school children from tribal areas, they used to climb up the towers or the trees in order to listen to your lectures. So that problem is also there in our context. And procrastination culture. Unless students are monitored, the students have the habit of, even PhD scholars also have the habit of procrastinating, postponing, okay, to a later date. So it may not work with some of our students. That is also there. Teachers' workload also increases. Teachers have to prepare their lectures. Teachers have to upload their condensed lectures. We are used to speaking for 15 minutes. Now you have to speak only 15 minutes. You have to introduce classroom activities. So additional time, additional effort, it is required. So and above all, you cannot flip all the units. You have to be very careful at the time of planning your curriculum, which item in a particular unit can be flipped. Which unit requires teacher's explanation. Not all units, not all items in a unit, not the entire course can be flipped. That is not possible. That is a misunderstanding. So you have to be very careful while you are planning your particular course to decide which part of the syllabus must be flipped or blended. So friends, as the times change, we the English language and literature teachers ought to change our attitudes. We need to make use of technology, not for the sake of technology, but for students' sake. When they become tech savvy, we cannot afford to be backward in the use of the same. When our students become digital natives, we cannot afford to be digital outsiders. We should at least become digital immigrants. Email and WhatsApp, Telegram have come to stay, and you have to necessarily be in touch with them through social media, because social media has enabled a new learning reality. And therefore, friends, we must realign our delivery modes with the learning styles of the 21st century learners. And it's almost time. Thank you very much for your patient listening to me. Have a good day. If you got any queries, you can post it through the through I think Aishwarya, who is emceeing, or you can put your questions on the chat box. I'm willing, or else over to the organizers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable and enlightening session.
Are you
I hope the
Aishwarya?
participants.
Are you Aishwarya?
Yes, sir. It was an enlightening session, sir. Thank you so much.
I see your name here. That's what I'm asking you, whether you are Aishwarya. You are a PG student?
I'm a student, sir.
Okay, okay, fine. But go ahead, go ahead.
Participants, please post your queries to our email so that we will be answering to it. Now, I would like to call upon Professor J. Kartika to deliver the oath of thanks.
Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and coming and delivering our lecture here. It was such an honor to invite you even. So I'm so glad that you accepted immediately as well, because I gave you very less time duration to even consider our proposal. So thank you so much for that. And of course, you gave us historically, the development of like how blended learning came into being, and then how we have started using, and as well as flipped learning as well. Even among our own teaching fraternity, among my own friends and colleagues, we do have a lot of doubts, like what's the difference between flipped and blended learning. We can understand blended learning is more about technology, but flipped learning, we didn't really get the clue out of it. So it was really great that you were able to give us the exact difference, the advantages and the disadvantages as well. And as you rightly said, the teachers need to do the homework. We need to be more prepared. We need to be more creative, so that we are better teachers for our digital natives and become digital immigrants as well. So I believe they would have a lot of questions, but we don't have so much of time. So maybe we will give, so can we share your mail ID so that in case they have doubts, you can answer it as well?
Yes, Kati, you can share my email ID with them.
Okay, so the participants, we will share the email ID of Professor. So you can also, in case something is very important, you can definitely raise the question with him as well. Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you all the participants for being here. And being the first day, we had a few setbacks here and there, but I believe like you would not mind it, and we would try to conduct it in a much better way in the future sessions in the Zoom as well. Okay. So thank you all.
Thank you, Lord. Thanks a lot, Katia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to host this event, and I wish you all a pleasant day. Let's take a short break and meet again at 11:30 for the next session on the theoretical perspectives of using web tools for teaching English language and literature. by Dr. Sujata Priyadashmi, Assistant Professor, Department of English, College of Engineering, Anna University. Participants are requested to join through the Zoom link that has been shared in the WhatsApp group. Please join by 11:20 as the next session will begin sharply at 11:30. Thank you.
Yeah, excuse me, we have shared the feedback link. Kindly fill up that particular as well. In every session, you will have an attendance link as well as a feedback link. So this is a common instruction for all of you throughout the sessions. Thank you, all of you. Kindly join us for the next next session in the Zoom meet.